shipping label sticks to your thumb, not the paper kind that peels clean, but the cheap adhesive that drags skin hair and leaves a tacky film. Someone has pressed it there without asking, smiling like it is helpful. A name is printed in block letters, not theirs, yours. The room keeps moving while you stand still. People glance once and decide they already know what package you are. A comment lands, light as dust, and suddenly a dozen small behaviors rearrange around you. Doors open slower. Invitations turn conditional. Your words get clarified in your absence, and the clarification is treated as the official version. That is the trick. They do not defeat you in a direct argument. They relabel you. Then they route every future interaction through that label until you start speaking like a shipping slip, explaining your contents, apologizing for your weight, proving you belong. This is how social control becomes quiet. Someone prints your barcode and everyone else scans it. A forged label does not need to be believable. It only needs to be repeatable. Once your identity becomes a tag, people stop listening for who you are and start listening for confirmation of the tag. The most dangerous part is not their confidence. It is your adaptation. You begin adjusting tone, trimming stories, adding disclaimers, trying to make the scanner read approved. The cost is not bruises. The cost is routing. Your access, your reputation, your peace, your ability to move through rooms without paying a toll in explanations. It shows up in one place, then another, then the place you thought was safe. At a distance, it looks like gossip. Up close, it behaves like logistics. Someone assigns a code, someone else repeats it. A third person treats it as inventory fact. Before long, you are managed. A crowd can be trained to outsource judgment. All it needs is a label that feels useful. A vendor table at a crowded event. Someone laughs too loudly, leaning close, and says your name with a small twist. Not an insult, a category. The laugh badge spreads faster than correction. Your face stays calm while your stomach drops because you understand the math. A joke costs you one breath. A label costs you a season. Damage arrives as misrouting. Damage arrives as prejudgment. The label is not a story. It is a filter. They do not have to prove it. They only have to keep it in circulation. The first mechanism is the soft rename. They do not accuse you of anything concrete. They give you a compact identity that fits on a sticker: difficult, unstable, intense, ungrateful, dramatic, unsafe, always something. It is short enough to quote and vague enough to defend. A hand taps your shoulder in a hallway. A friend whispers that someone just wants to give you a heads up. Your throat tightens because the message has no details to answer, only a mood to absorb. You thank them anyway, because rejecting the mood makes you look like the mood. The label sticks because it pretends to be protection. The second mechanism is the borrowed witness. They rarely speak in their own authority. They speak through people and some concerns and a few patterns. The crowd becomes their shield and your judge. A group chat scrolls. Your name appears, then a screenshot of a sentence you wrote months ago, then a paragraph of interpretation. You feel heat in your ears, not from guilt, but from the loss of context. A reply is typed and deleted 3 times because every explanation sounds like a confession under their frame. Silence becomes their evidence. Speech becomes your liability. The third mechanism is the barcode test. They trigger you lightly to see which version of you prints. If you respond calmly, they call it calculating. If you respond emotionally, they call it proof. If you refuse, they call it avoidance. The scanner is designed to beep either way. A public space. Someone bumps your shoulder on purpose and says it was an accident while watching your face. Your jaw sets. You step back instead of forward. The social consequence is immediate. A small smile from them, a look between 2 bystanders, a story forming without words. You are being measured for reaction, not truth. Arguing with the scanner only feeds it. What breaks the spell is not a better performance. It is a refusal to accept their routing system as reality. The next room is quieter, but it is not safer. An informal committee. Not a job title, not a workplace, but a circle that controls access. A group that decides who is in good standing, who gets invited, who gets the microphone, who gets the benefit of the doubt. The label becomes an entry rule. Damage arrives as permission withheld. Damage arrives as a new price for normal access. In these rooms, the gate is not locked. It is conditional. The fourth mechanism is provisional access. They keep you on a temporary pass, so you behave like a guest. Every small misstep is treated as evidence you never belonged. A message comes with a smile and a disclaimer. We are excited you're here, just be mindful. No details, just a foggy warning. You feel yourself shrink in advance, speaking less, offering less, trying to be harmless enough to keep the pass. A pass that can be revoked turns gratitude into obedience. The fifth mechanism is rule laundering. They invent a policy after you react, then pretend it existed before you arrived. Your resistance becomes a violation of a rule that was written to punish your resistance. A meeting circle. Someone interrupts you, then later says calmly that you are dominating the space. Your hands go cold because the accusation is moral, not factual. If you defend yourself, you are defensive. If you retreat, you confirm the policy by living under it. They do not win by being right. They win by being official. The sixth mechanism is forced self-exile. They do not ban you. They make presence so expensive that you leave to protect yourself, and your leaving is narrated as proof you were guilty. You stand at an entrance and hear your name said softly, followed by a pause. No one looks at you directly. Your shoulders rise a little, involuntarily. You can feel your body preparing to pay. You turn around instead, and the group breathes out, relieved. Your absence becomes their peace story. They call it harmony. It is a purge without paperwork. There is a severance option that does not require drama. It requires clarity. You name the terms of contact and you stop negotiating against rumors. The last room is inside you. This is where the label becomes a voice. Damage arrives as self-surveillance. Damage arrives as a life lived for scanners. The seventh mechanism is internal pre-clearance. You start editing yourself before you speak, running each thought through the fear of how it will be framed. You become your own logistics clerk, stamping approved on only the safest parts of you. A dinner table. You begin a story and hear your own voice soften mid-sentence, sanding off edges that were never dangerous. Your chest tightens with an old instinct. Be understandable, be harmless, be impossible to misquote. The social consequence is subtle but real. You stop offering the honest version of yourself, and people stop meeting the honest version. A life that is always pre-cleared is not a life. It is a shipment. The eighth mechanism is shame as quality control. When you demand specifics, they call you paranoid. When you ask for fairness, they call you exhausting. When you hold the line, they call you rigid. The label tries to recruit you into apologizing for having standards. A message arrives. This is why people struggle with you. Your stomach drops because it hits an ancient nerve, the desire to be easy to be around. You almost answer with a long explanation, then you notice what they did. They did not answer your request for specifics. They graded your character instead. A character grade is not a fact. It is a leash. The defense is not constant confrontation. The defense is clean routing. One place at a time, you cut off the supply chain. The label loses power when it cannot travel. Some people will still scan for the old code. They will keep trying to pull you back into the warehouse system because it makes them feel efficient. Let them feel efficient without you. Efficiency is not truth. Your dignity is not inventory. Your name is not a barcode. Severance is simple. A person who needs you mislabeled needs you manageable. When you become unmanageable to their story, they will look for a new package. The crowd learns the code through small rewards. Someone who repeats the label gets a nod from the unofficial center. They get included. They feel informed. They feel safe. A rumor is not just a weapon. It is a membership test. A hallway after an event. Two people talk in low voices. When you approach, the voices stop. Not abruptly, just enough to let you notice. One person smiles too wide and changes the subject to logistics, to schedules, to anything that avoids naming what was being traded. Your body reads the stop as exclusion and offers you a reflex, fix it. You find yourself offering extra friendliness as payment to re-enter the circle. That payment is what they wanted. The rename spreads best when it wears a moral costume. Not I dislike them, but I worry about the impact. Not they annoy me, but they are unsafe. Words like that are loaded weapons because they turn disagreement into sin. A table with snacks and paper cups. Someone says brightly that they admire your passion, then lowers their voice and adds, "Just be careful." People can feel overwhelmed. The compliment opens the door. The warning pushes you through it. You walk away swallowing your own enthusiasm like it is contraband. Enthusiasm becomes something you smuggle. That is not self-control. That is captivity. Sometimes the label arrives as a translation. They claim to interpret you for others like you are too complex to be understood directly. They become your mouth, then blame you for what they say. A mutual acquaintance repeats a sentence you never said. You correct it gently. They look confused, then defensive. "That's what I heard you meant." You realize the interpreter has been selling meaning as a product, and your correction threatens their business. People who profit from misunderstanding will call clarity rude. There is also a darker version of the barcode test, the forced apology. They create a vague harm, demand a vague repair, then treat your apology as proof the harm was real. If you refuse to apologize, you are not taking accountability. If you apologize, the label upgrades from suspicion to record, a private call. The other person sighs, wounded, and says, "I just need you to acknowledge how you made people feel." The phrase is designed to bypass facts. Your chest tightens because you are being pushed to sign a blank form. You can almost feel the future. Your apology will be quoted without the conditions you meant, the nuance removed, the scanner fed. The blank form stays unsigned. What is real is the only offer. If you can name the exact behavior, I will address it. That sentence is not aggression, it is hygiene. The gate rooms use a second tactic to keep labels alive. They overload the calendar. They keep you busy proving loyalty. Volunteer more, show up more, pay more, be visible. A person under evaluation becomes cheap labor because they are trying to buy safety. A message arrives asking for help with setup, then cleanup, then an extra errand, then a quick favor before you sleep. You say yes because you want to be seen as cooperative. Then you realize you are being worked, not welcomed. You are not a member, you are a resource under probation. Probation is control with a friendly face. The inner court has its own trap, rehearsed innocence. You start replaying conversations in bed, trying to find the sentence that caused the label. You rewrite your tone in your head, imagining alternate versions where the scanner would have beeped approved. This is how the warehouse gets inside you. You become both prisoner and guard, a ceiling in the dark. Your mind runs the scene again, your jaw clenches, your body is not resting. It is performing. The next day you enter the room already tired, and tiredness becomes the new evidence they scan. That is why the clean routing rule matters so much. It stops the machine outside, and it stops the machine inside. There is one more thing. Some people will never take your new rules. They will call you cold. They will call you rigid. They will whisper that you are changing. They can keep the old inventory card. A person who needed you small will always grieve the version of you they could manage. A case makes it clearer. A small cultural club meets once a month in a rented room above a cafe. No boss, no romance plot, just people, names on a list, a key, and the quiet hunger to belong somewhere without paying for it. A new member arrives with a gift of certainty. They speak fluently about ethics, about safety, about what we stand for. The warmth is convincing because it is confident. The room relaxes into it. Someone who sounds sure feels like a guardrail. 2 meetings later, the first label appears. It is delivered like concern, not attack. I'm not saying anything bad, I just want to check something. You can tell when someone's energy is off. No specifics, just a scan. The person being scanned hears it through a smile. Their hands go still on the cup. They laugh lightly to keep the air breathable, and in that laugh they agree to being evaluated. The next week, a private message circulates. A short summary of a conversation, cleaned and polished, the messy human parts removed. The summary ends with a careful sentence. We should keep an eye on this. Nobody wants to be the one who ignores a warning. The warning becomes virtue. At the door on the next meeting night, there is a clipboard. Attendance is being organized. The scanned person's name is read with a pause, not a pause long enough to accuse, just long enough to signal. Their body reacts before their mind finishes the thought. Shoulders tighten, voice softens. They choose a seat near the edge so they will not be seen as taking space. Inside the circle, they offer an idea. The person with borrowed certainty nods, then reframes it. The idea comes back with new words, stripped of its original intent, and the room nods again. Ownership disappears in real time, and nobody calls it theft because theft requires conflict, and conflict would feel unsafe. After the meeting, a friend pulls them aside and speaks in the language of care. Some people felt uncomfortable. It might help if you share less personal stuff. You come on strong. The scanned person asks what exactly was uncomfortable. The friend cannot answer. They only have the label. That is the moment logistics becomes destiny. The person is not being responded to, they are being routed. They try the obvious defense. They become nicer. They become quieter. They become more helpful. They start arriving early to prove commitment. They stay late to clean up. They donate money to the room rent without being asked. Each effort is filed under the label as performance. A month later, a small conflict appears, not about conduct, but about interpretation. The person with borrowed certainty says, publicly, that the scanned person has a pattern of making things about them. The room goes still. The scanned person feels a spike of heat in the chest, then a coldness in the hands. They speak carefully, choosing words like they are diffusing a device. It does not matter. The scanner is already reading. If they defend themselves, the certainty person sighs and says, "This is exactly what I mean." If they stay quiet, the certainty person nods and says, "See, avoidance." The scanned person realizes the trap is not the accusation. It is the permission structure. The room has outsourced its judgment to a single interpreter because the interpreter offers an easy map. So the defense changes. They stop trying to be liked by the interpreter. They stop trying to win the room through performance. They speak to the process. The room reacts like a body exposed to cold water. A few people feel relieved because rules protect them too. A few people feel threatened because rules remove their hobby of vague judgment. The certainty person responds immediately with moral language. This is hostile. This is policing feelings. The scanned person does not debate feelings. They repeat the routing rule once. A day later, the certainty person tries a different attack. They say the rule itself proves the scanned person is unsafe because safe people would not need rules. The scanned person reads it, breathes out, and recognizes the ancient trick: make boundaries look like violence. They do not beg for a new label. 2 months later, a different member reaches out privately. The certainty person has moved on to a new target. The labels changed, but the logistics did not. The pattern became visible only after the first person refused to stay in the warehouse. That refusal was the only proof that mattered. A misunderstanding ruins people here. The point is not to build your own barcode gun and scan others back. That is the same disease, just a different uniform. If you become obsessed with proving who is really manipulative, you will start living as an investigator instead of a person. The point is narrower. You defend process, not reputation. A process demand is clean. Specifics, dates, quotes, context. One channel for complaints, one response. No shadow trials. A reputation defense is endless. It invites you to perform innocence for anyone who wants entertainment. Some labels are not meant to be corrected. They are meant to keep you busy. Fate acceptance matters here. You cannot control the inventory list inside other people's heads. You can control whether you keep shipping yourself to their warehouse. Stoicism is not numbness. It is sovereignty over what you feed. You refuse to feed a machine that runs on your self-justification. When you feel the itch to explain, pause long enough to see the invoice. Who benefits from your sentences? Who gets to judge your tone? Who gets to treat your humanity as a defect? Some rooms will call that arrogance. Let them. A room that needs you mislabeled will always treat clarity as a threat. You do not need to win the label war. You need to stop living under labels you did not print. The barcode comes off your thumb, the adhesive washes away, and the stickers stay on their own table.